his eye. I didn't say, what are you looking so sad about, Jack?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. That's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talk about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I was on a bum of my tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
What's happening, my people? It's Cass Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Salute to Miss Cass. Without her, none of this would be possible. Salute to everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, historic boxing stories. Historic boxing stories. Has the family today. This is the Hump Day edition of Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. On the way downhill to the weekend, we're just going to look at a few different boxing subjects today. We're going to look at, of course, the fight of the day. Then we're going to look at 25 of the most hated boxers in history. Then we're going to look at some famous sparring stories. Some of the best switch hitters in boxing. Some amateurs that had outstanding Olympic medal careers as amateurs, but didn't do so well at the pro ranks. Most underwhelming Olympic gold medalists as professionals. And we're going to look at the top 5 greatest amateur boxers of all time. And finally, we're going to look at a great amateur boxer by the name of Laszlo Papp, one of the three-time Olympic gold medalists. He was from a communist bloc country, Hungary. He wasn't allowed to go pro level for a long time. They did eventually let him go pro, but for majority of his career, all he had was amateur boxing. So he won 3 Olympic gold medals. All that today on Cass Sports, the Box Historian, bringing you all that boxing history. Salute to Mike Mazik in the building. Salute, Mike. We're just going to touch on a number of different boxing subjects today. All right, welcome aboard to the Wednesday afternoon Hump Day edition of Cass Sports, the Box Historian. Emmanuel Navarrete back in there this weekend. Eduardo Nunez should be a good fight in our early 2026 schedule. Had a couple of good big cards already. 2 big main ones, the Shakur T.O. We had the last weekend. Ryan became a champion for the first time, beating Mario Barrios. We got Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao scheduled. Wow. Those 2 old fossils going to get back in there. But hey, fittingly, against each other, who else should they fight? Each other. That's the perfect matchup for them. We don't need to see Manny in there against no more Mario Barrios is taking it easy on him. Getting there with Floyd. They're going to make a boatload of money, and I'll probably watch it. Depends on how much it costs as a pay-per-view. I ain't paying no $99.99. See those 2. When we wanted them to fight 2009, 2010, they wouldn't fight. Now they both damn near 50, they want to fight. But hey, if you can get out there and people pay to see you, you can make them millions of dollars, make them. I ain't mad at them. Okay, but now let's get ready to start things off with our fighters of the day today. As you know, started off each day with a classic fight. Just a fight from the past. Could be last weekend, or could be like yesterday, last century. Had a fight from 1919 yesterday. But now we're getting ready to do today's fight of the day. Start things off. We're going to get into a number of different boxing subjects today. But how's everybody? Wednesday Hump Day afternoon. Welcome aboard, just getting started. So without further ado, today's fight of the day. Okay. Today's fight of the day is Henry Armstrong versus Lou Ambers, August the 17th, 1938. A special piece of boxing history for Homicide Hank. A special piece of boxing history for Homicide Hank. All right, let's get into it. This is when the great Henry Armstrong made a very special piece of boxing history, 1938. Becoming a 2-weight, 3-weight, even a 4-weight world champion in the sport of boxing is considerably easier today compared to the golden days, the great days when boxing was one of the biggest sports in the world. Why is it so easier today? It's simple. There are more weight divisions today. When there used to be just 8 in the old days, we had flyweight. Well, I wasn't around, but they had flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. They're today called the original weight. Okay? And not only that, one special fighter host, and really only one champion in each weight class back then. Okay, didn't have no interims and supers and super dupers and gold intercontinental British champions, one per weight class in the original weight. And one special fighter held the unique distinction of holding the world championship in 3 of these weight divisions at the same time. Okay, 8 divisions, only 8 champions, and one man was champion in 3 of those weight divisions. Henry Armstrong, an amazing physical specimen with an unquenchable desire to fight the very best again and again and again, had won the featherweight crown. He had captured the welterweight championship, and now, on a hot and humid night in August of 1938, he was challenging for the unimaginably tough Lou Ambers for the world lightweight crown. Okay, he was going for his 3rd crown simultaneously in this fight right here today. Homicide Hank was. Now Ambers, that's the man he was challenging. Lou Ambers, who throughout his career would show his own greatness with wins over the likes of Baby Arizmendi, yet another great. He engaged in a fierce rivalry with Armstrong too. And Ambers also fought Tony Canzonieri and Fritzy Zivit. And Ambers was not letting go of his title without a fight. As a matter of fact, a brutal fight. Okay? Wasn't letting it go. Without a brutal fight, Ambers wasn't. There they are. Armstrong on the left, Ambers on the right. In the build-up. The two went to war in New York City at a time when boxing fans would not settle for anything but a great fight. With the hell of the Great Depression still raging, money was short, and a lack of effort on the part of a prize fighter would simply not be tolerated back then. Some of the non-efforts for big money we fans are treated to today would have resulted in a veritable lynching back in them days, or at the very least, the need for a move to another town on the part of the fighter who turned into a cash grab. But that's another story. That's another story for another day. Armstrong and Ambers gave their all and then some for 15 scintillating, often brutal rounds. The pace set by the freakishly strong and energetic Armstrong was as hot as the temperature inside a packed-out Madison Square Garden. Fans witnessed a genuine classic. Armstrong, almost as powerful at 135 as he was at 126, almost ended matters in the 5th round when he decked Ambers with a right hand to the head. The bell saved Ambers, and the battle raged on. Saved by the bell in the 5th. The battle rages on. Down again in the next round. Ambers withstood a terrible hammering from Homicide Hank, the fight appearing to be close to its end. But Ambers was one tough man. Armstrong might have come within a punch or two of punching himself out as he tore in, looking for the finish. The savage slugfest continued unabated. Armstrong was winning more rounds, yet he was paying the price. I told you this was a brutal battle. Armstrong was winning the rounds, but he was paying the price. Hit plenty, bleeding inside the mouth, and close to real exhaustion. Armstrong had to survive a big late rounds rally. Ambers was somehow coming on strong in the final third of the fight. Reportedly, the referee was so alarmed at the amount of blood that it soaked the ring canvas, he told Armstrong he was going to have to stop the fight. "Don't stop it," Armstrong pleaded. "I'm winning the fight." The ring is full of blood, and it's your blood, the referee bellowed. Then I'll stop bleeding, Armstrong said back. Armstrong told him, then I'll stop bleeding. So, and astonishingly, showing the kind of heart and bravery no modern day fighter would be allowed to show, should he actually have the guts to want to, Armstrong fought the final 5 rounds with no mouthpiece in. So instead of the blood coming out, he took his mouthpiece out and started swallowing it so the referee wouldn't stop the fight. Armstrong swallowed God knows how much of his own blood. His refusal to quit, something we should forever marvel at. Yeah, the referee said, you're doing too much bleeding from his mouth. So he took his mouthpiece out and started swallowing the blood instead of the referee keep seeing his blood on the mat. For the last 5 rounds with no mouthpiece. But it still ain't over yet. Ambrose, finding his 3rd win, maybe even his 4th win, gave it all he had left in the last couple of rounds. Armstrong, his eyes banged up, managed to hold on. Just managed to hold on. Neither man had anything left at the final bell. Yet, Ambrose had the crowd on his side. Armstrong was the winner. Yet the decision. 15 rounds in. 8 on one card. 8 for Armstrong, 6 for Ambrose, 1 even. On the second card, 7 for Armstrong, 6 for Ambrose, 2 even. And on the third card, 8 rounds to 7 for Ambrose. And the fans booed the split decision in Armstrong's favor. Today, with the money they would have earned from this fight, both men would be set for life, with no need to ever fight again. So heroically did the pair fight that night. But instead, both men fought on for years, meeting again the following August, with Ambrose regaining the title with a 15-round unanimous decision. But for now, in 1938, Harry Armstrong was the king of kings, having become the first and only man to have ever held 3 world titles in as many weights at the same time. There you have it, the fight of the day. Harry Armstrong, Lou Ambrose, won by Harry Armstrong, 15-round split decision. And there's Homicide Hank right there. At a time where there were only 8 weight classes total, he was champion in 3 of them, and only 1 champion per weight class. He was the champion in 3 weight classes. Homicide Henry Armstrong. All right, that was the fight of the day. So now, today's show is going to be various subjects. We're going to start out with 25 of the most hated fighters in history. And some of these fighters, like Muhammad Ali, is on the list because as beloved as he was, by the time his career and life ended, he was not only one of the most liked athletes in the world, he's one of the most liked people, period. But back when he was young in the 60s, he was hated, especially when he was Cassius Clay and joined the Muslims. And back then, with the racist way the country was, he not only joined the Muslims, he joined the black Muslims. So Ali is on this list. He was hated back then. As much as he was loved and cherished by the end of his life, he was hated that much, just like that at early in his career in the 60s when he joined the black Muslims. Malcolm X and them, people was like, what? Oh no, we got to get that title away from him. But anyway, 25 of the most hated boxers in history now. We start today's show out. Got a number of subjects today. Let's get started. Today's show. How's everybody this Wednesday afternoon? Cass Sports, the Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Okay, 25 of the most hated boxers in history. – Floyd. Okay, here we go. Now this is subjective, of course. Okay, Pernell Whitaker. I don't know what happened to the picture, 3P. Just a little brief talk about him. Now, the counter-punching southpaw had a style that made fighters look bad. While mounting consistent offense, 3P would dodge punches and hold, and many times landing low blow counters. And this did not give him a well-liked reputation. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Although many fans will tell you Marvelous Marvin Hagler was a gifted fighter, he became widely known for making excuses and accusations. His unorthodox training and mental toughness made him a very tenacious competitor, but when he thought he was robbed, he'd let you know. He said, even though the outcome wasn't the way it should have been, publicly, I still feel in my heart I won the Sugar Ray Leonard fight. Erik Morales. Oh, that ain't Erik. Erik Morales. Here he is on the left there. Looks like he's fighting Manny. Yep, Erik Morales. It's no secret to most boxing fans. When legendary boxer Erik Morales heard a decision he didn't like, he stormed out of the ring. Most of those times he refused a post-fight interview. He got a lot of grief for his unsportsmanlike attitudes in defeat. Erik Morales, like some of the most 25 disliked boxers in history. John Ruiz. John, the Quiet Man Ruiz, is one of the most boring fighters to ever win a title. His one punch and hold style made a 12-round fight seem like an old-fashioned 25-round fight from back in the day. Ruiz was highly criticized for his style and even left the sport for a short time due to his unpopularity. John the Quiet Man Ruiz. Good nickname. We did the nickname show yesterday. Johnny Tapia. These are some of the most hated boxers in history. Johnny Tapia. Subjective subject. Tapia was suspended from boxing for 3 years after testing positive for a banned substance in 1991. The tattoo-covered fighter from New Mexico loved to mix it up and fight dirty. Combine that with his big mouth, and he became an instant heel. Johnny Tapia. Ricky Hatton. Now, he was beloved in Great Britain, but that was Great Britain. Ricky Hatton. The Hitman. Don't let the invasion of British boxing fans who traveled to Hatton's fights fool you. The wisecracking Brit earned the reputation for getting very sloppy between fights. With his admitted drug addiction and knockout losses to elite opposition, Hatton was far from adored. The Klitschko brothers, some of the most hated boxers in history. The Klitschko brothers, Vladimir Vitaly. Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko are loved in their homeland of Ukraine. However, they became less than respected in the United States. They held the entire heavyweight division hostage with their vow and promise to their mother to never fight each other. Both Klitschko's were holding lineal championship in the heavyweight division. And nobody from the United States was able to take the titles from them. HBO severed ties with the brothers and stopped airing their fights, citing lack of interest during their careers, the Klitschko brothers. Vic Darkinian. Looking at some of the most hated boxers in history. Vic Darkinian. The Armenian southpaw had incredible power in both hands. And at bantamweight, his power was even more devastating. His indifference for the well-being of his opponents and his somewhat self-serving demeanor made him a villain. Vic Darkinian. The Real Deal, Holyfield. The Real Deal, Holyfield. Using his head as a battering ram seems to be the most notable reason that Holyfield is on the most hated list. However, his insistence on staying relevant in the sport too long gained significant major opposition to his headbutting as being a villain. The Real Deal. Stayed around way too long. Is he still fighting? Carl Froch. It's next. There's Carl on the right. That's Mikkel Kessler of Denmark. He's fighting against there. Out of all the fighters on this list, Carl Froch is the second to have an anti-fan page on Facebook. The I Hate Carl Froch fan club on Facebook definitely qualifies him for this list. Moreover, his repeated bashing of future Hall of Fame boxer Joe Calzaghe earned the disdain of many fight fans across the pond. Carl Froch. Zabdiel Judah. Zab Judah. These are some of the most hated boxers in history. Zab Judah. Referee Jay Nady will be the first in the I Hate Zab Judah fan club. After calling a halt to the fight in the second round of Judah versus Zoo, Zab grabbed Nady by the neck and pushed him toward the ropes in opposition to the stoppage. That was just one of the many times Zab lost his cool in the ring. Remember hitting Floyd low and the rabbit punch? Yeah, Jay Nady would be the #1 member in the I Hate Zab Judah fan club, the referee. Remember Zab grabbed him when he stopped the fight against Tim Kostya or Tim Kostya the senior Zoo. Some of the most hated boxers in the history of the sport right there. Max Baer. Maximilian Adalbert Baer spent the bulk of his boxing career in the 1930s, amassing over 71 wins, with 53 of those wins coming by way of knockout. Baer enjoyed playing the villain and was well known for taking cheap shots and then taunting the spectators. Unfortunately, this behavior led to the death of one of his opponents, Frankie Campbell, in 1930. Fernando Vargas. Fernando on the right. Vargas learned to fight at the La Colonia Youth Boxing Club in the Colonia of Oxnard, California. While boxing took him to the heights of stardom, he never could separate himself from the streets. Vargas compiled multiple convictions, including assault with a deadly weapon. Fernando was also known for using his mouth to get under the skin of his opponents and pick a fight, including the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya. And Oscar beat him down in the ring. Lights out, James Toney. It's lights out. Is there anyone who likes James Toney? Oh, Ed does. There's a lot of people who like James. Okay. Now that's being somewhat facetious, because Toney was a game fighter. Toney's sloppy ring appearances and his suspensions for illegal drug use are only a few reasons he made the list up. Most notably, though, is his affinity for trash talking. Most disliked, some of the most disliked, hated boxers in history right now. Next is Ricardo Mayorga. Yeah, he should be number one. Ricardo was terrible in those press conferences, man. Wow. Ricardo Mayorga. The cigarette smoking, beer swilling pugilist from Nicaragua has a big mouth, to say the least. The cover of the December 2003 Ring magazine issue read, "The craziest man in the sport of boxing. Mayorga lights up the sport." During the press tour for his fight with Oscar De La Hoya, Mayorga stated, "This clown sitting to the right of me has disrespected me. My strongest hand is my right hand. See his eye? I'm going to use it to detach his retina. You're going to be my BITCH in my bed anytime I want you," he told Oscar. "I hate BITCHES, and I'm going to make you my little one." Not to mention some very derogatory comments made about Oscar's wife, too. Mayorga was terrible. At the top of the most hated boxers list in history, Ricardo Mayorga. They told Oscar all that at the press conference. They can make Oscar his biatch. And talked about Oscar's wife, too. Called Oscar gay. Prince Nassim Hamed is next. This is the prince. The British boxer was best known for his wild ring entrances, at one time entering the ring on a flying carpet. However, his most hated outer ring antic was definitely his trash talking. When it was time to step into the squared circle, Prince would devastate his opponents with bombs, then humiliate them with embarrassing gestures. But then he got embarrassed in his next to last fight by Marco Antonio Barrera, very fitting into a hated boxer's career for the Prince. Antonio Tarver. Thomas Hill, what's up? Look at some of the most hated boxers in history. Thomas Hill. Lining down there. Antonio Tarver. What's up, T. Hill? Okay, salute. Thomas Hill in the building. Next on the list, though, is Antonio Tarver. The Magic Man may have earned props from some fans when he said, got any excuses tonight, Roy, after the summation of rules by referee Tommy Kimmons for the Tarver versus Jones fight. It completely sums up his arrogance in the sport, and quite a few folks share those feelings. Tito, Felix Trinidad. Widely regarded as one of the best to come out of Puerto Rico, Felix Tito Trinidad was a brash-talking fighter with devastating knockout power. His love for all things Puerto Rican and his incredible wins over Mexican legends earned him the bad guy title. Bernard Hopkins, B-Hop, / the executioner / the alien. Many regard Hopkins as a boring fighter. He rightfully was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But his trash talking got really old during his career. Now, many people can tell Hopkins a promoter. Not many people can tell Hopkins a promoter from Hopkins the fighter. Roy Jones Jr. There's Roy. Y'all must have forgot that Roy Jones Jr. is one of the fastest boxers to lace up the gloves, and he let you know it. At one time delivering a humiliating knockout to Glenn Kelly with his hands behind his back. Roy would imitate a fighting rooster in the middle of the ring and faint when his opponent would bite. Jones would unleash both hands in an accurate flurry. Muhammad Ali. Yes, Muhammad Ali. At one point in his career, he was the most hated fighter in the world. Back when he joined the Muslims, like I said, they didn't just say he joined the Muslims, they said he joined the black Muslims. And as beloved as he was at the end of his career in life, one of the most well-known people in the world, he was very hated back in the 60s. Muhammad Ali was. Okay? A lot of people didn't know that, but yes. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., but changed his name after converting to the Nation of Islam in 1964. It was believed he did so in order to avoid registering for the draft in his opposition to the Vietnam War. Ali was arrested, stripped of his titles, and did not fight until he won his appeal in the United States Supreme Court 4 years later. Ali loved to talk trash and loved being the antagonist, and people hated him for those things, especially when he joined the Muslims. But he became one of the most beloved people in the world at the end of his career, Muhammad Ali. Antonio Margarito, deservedly. And Sugar Shane put it on it. Spectators felt more pity than anger after Margarito received a one-sided beatdown at the hands of Manny Pacquiao in 2010. Although the suspension he received for illegally loading his hand wraps has forever earned him a spot on the most hated list, permanent spot toward the top of it. Mike Tyson, he made a nice comeback too, from being hated. If assaulting ex-wife Robin Givens, being convicted of rape, biting Evander Holyfield's ear, and assaulting 2 motorists after a fender bender isn't enough to convince you of its unpopularity, what will? Floyd Mayweather Jr., Final one. A slick defensive guru from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Floyd is one of the best boxers ever. His undefeated record of 50-0 is a testament to his incredible ring IQ. But his outer ring conduct has been his downfall. While droves of fans always supported him, many more came to the fights just to see Floyd lose. Floyd was quoted as saying during his career, "I am the face of boxing. I am bigger than the sport, and I'm better than Ali." These unwarranted statements and mounting legal issues at that time, mostly of a violent nature, solidified Floyd's place in boxing history on the most hated list. Okay, that was 25 of the most hated boxers in history. We got a few various different subjects we're going to cover today on Cash Sports, the Box Story. Next, we're going to look at some famous sparring stories. Some famous sparring stories now. If I can locate the cursor, there it is. Yeah, some famous sparring stories. Let's get into that. But how's everyone this Wednesday hump day afternoon? Beautiful day. Feeling springy out there. Spring is in the air. I turned down a box story, by the way. Yeah, some sparring stories is next though. A recording contract. I know I'm lying. I don't even know the right terms. Okay, let's get these sparring stories going. Right? There's some Sugar Ray Robinson, some Mike Tyson. Triple G and Canelo actually sparred like a few years before they had their first fight against each other. Got that one. Yeah, got like 10 of them. There's like 10 of them. Okay. And famous sparring story. Let's get into it. How's everybody though? Everybody good? Appreciate everybody's support. Okay. Now, what happens in the gym stays in the gym. Well, not really. Not really. Every boxing fan enjoys gym tales and sparring stories. Some have become infamous throughout boxing history due to the iconic fighters involved in them. Right? From all-time greats reportedly being dropped in sparring to world champions being beaten down in sparring. There have been plenty of rumors and speculation surrounding famous gym rounds. So let's look back at some of boxing history's most notorious sparring stories. Okay? Boxing's most notorious sparring stories. I missed one. Okay, bear with me for a second now. Okay, yeah. Sugar Ray Robinson and the Coco Kid. The Coco Kid from Murderers Row fame. You know, the black Murderers Row fighters from the 30s, 40s, 50s that everybody ducked. Sugar Ray dodged a couple of them. But he sparred the Coco Kid. This is probably why he ducked him, I guess. Let's talk about it. Sugar Ray Robinson versus the Coco Kid. That's Sugar Ray on the right, Coco Kid on the left. That is actually a picture of the sparring session. Boxing's Black Murderers Row were a group of 8 fighters from the 1930s to 1950s who were feared and heavily avoided by the reigning world champions in their era. Okay? This included Herbert Lewis Hardwick, Arroyo, who is more commonly known in boxing history as the Coco Kid, with the Puerto Rican being denied a deserved crack at the title throughout his entire career. Never got his shot. Most notably, Sugar Ray Robinson, the consensus greatest fighter in boxing history, was the welterweight champion, and he twice broke off an agreement to face the Coco Kid. Not once, twice. Okay? Interestingly, Hardwick was known to have dropped Prime Sugar Ray in their sparring sessions, while the latter was preparing for a title defense against Steve Bellawiese. Yeah, that's probably why he didn't get that title shot. He dropped Sugar Ray in sparring. A newspaper report gave details on the incident in an article titled Ray Robinson Floored by Sparring Partner, in which it stated, welterweight boxing champion Ray Robinson was knocked to the canvas today by a sparring partner at his Pompton Lakes sparring camp, stated the Reading Eagle newspaper on August 21st, 1949. It stated, Robinson went down after a right to the jaw by a spar mate, the Coco Kid. The champion quickly got back to his feet and continued boxing. Just days after this newspaper report surfaced, Robinson successfully stopped Bellawiese in 7 rounds at Yankee Stadium, while Hardwick never fought again and officially retired in 1950. Yep, that's why he didn't get that title shot. He dropped Sugar Ray in sparring. And that's Prime Sugar Ray. Okay? Some famous sparring stories. Jack Dempsey and Harry Greb. There they go there. That's Jack Dempsey on the left, Harry Greb on the right. Dempsey was a heavyweight. Greb fought from like middleweight all the way up to heavyweight, but Greb was really a natural middleweight. Jack Dempsey and Harry Greb, famous sparring stories. Speaking in 1922, legendary heavyweight champion and cultural icon Jack Dempsey was full of praise for sparring partner and long-mooted rival Harry Greb. Dempsey said, he was the fastest thing I ever saw in action. Hitting him is one of life's most difficult jobs because he's never set for a second, stated the Manassas Mauler Jack Dempsey. Greb, widely regarded by historians as the greatest prize fighter of all time, despite no known existing fight footage of him, is believed to have amazingly got the better of Dempsey on 2 occasions they shared rounds with in sparring. Newspaper clippings from 1920 reported that Greb was all over him and kept forcing him around the ring throughout the session. Greb seemed to be able to hit Dempsey almost at will. That's what a newspaper article stated about this sparring. They had 2 sessions. And the pair were scheduled to meet for years in a super fight that would have been a monumental one in boxing history. But frustratingly, it never materialized in the roaring 20s. It remains one of the biggest what-ifs in the sport to this day. Harry Greb and Jack Dempsey. Greb was reportedly to have got the better of the heavyweight champion in sparring, and then significantly, Greb was a natural middleweight. Dempsey was a natural heavyweight. I know y'all heard about this one. Mike Tyson and Greg Page. Greg Page on the left, Iron Mike on the right. This one, he was Iron Mike Tyson. Now, back in 1990, Mike Tyson's invincible aura came to a stunning and unexpected halt when he suffered a knockout loss to James Buster Douglas. In what is still to this day the greatest upset in boxing and perhaps overall sports history, Tyson had entered the fight in Tokyo as the reigning undisputed heavyweight champion after rallying to a destructive 37-0 career record and a 40-1 favorite to win the fight. But Iron Mike tasted defeat for the first time in Japan, with Douglas producing a career-best performance to become an unlikely champion after being motivated by the tragic death of his mother just 23 days before the fight. Reports eventually surfaced after the fight that Tyson had been slacking off in training, and there were evident signs in the build-up to the fight, as he was famously floored in sparring by a longtime training partner, Greg Page. The writing was seemingly on the wall before the seismic Tokyo Dome upset, with Japanese TV having shown Tyson being decked by Page in front of media members in attendance. It was also reported by the New York Times that Tyson had sparred Page again the following day, but quit after 3 rounds and opted to take the day off from preparation for the fight. Yep, the writing was on the wall before the Buster fight. Mike had been decked in sparring. Sparring stories: Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Paul Spadafora. Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Paul Spadafora. A 1999 sparring session between Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Paul Spadafora is now widely known among boxing fans, and the footage has gathered millions of views online. It shows Pretty Boy being outboxed and outworked before collapsing to the canvas with exhaustion after 6 tough rounds in Las Vegas. Mayweather was 3 years into his eventual Hall of Fame career at the time, while Spadafora was busy preparing for a maiden title defense against Renato Cornett. The Pittsburgh-born Southpaw's trainer, Jesse Rice, claimed that the self-proclaimed TBE tried to call for an early exit during the testing rounds, but refused and insisted on continuing. Jesse Rice said Floyd wanted to stop the sparring, but he refused, and they continued. Rice recalled, Mayweather's nose was bleeding, his eye looked like it was swelling, and he kept getting cracked up. Kept getting cracked. And Rice continued. Finally, in the 4th round, Mayweather comes to me and asks if we can get out of the ring because he says he was tired. Spadafora himself played down the now infamous sparring session as irrelevant by saying it was just a effing sparring match, though the pair were notably once linked with a potential fight, but it never materialized. Yep. Sadly, his own personal life was marred with troubles, despite success in the ring. For Spadafora had a troubled personal life, while Floyd went on to retire at 50-0 as an all-time great. But they had that sparring session. Muhammad Ali versus Larry Holmes. Holmes was Ali and Smoking Joe Frazier's sparring partner. Yeah. Frazier and Holmes. Frazier and Ali Holmes was, yeah. Years before a dangerously over-the-hill Muhammad Ali faced then heavyweight champion Larry Holmes in 1980, the two legends had already shared the ring in training camps. Holmes had been Ali's sparring partner for a long time during his rise to prominence, and he even lived with his idol in camp. It's believed they worked together for hundreds of rounds, beginning from 1972, when the greatest hired the Eastern Assassin as a sparring partner. Past claims were always made that Holmes had dominated his hero during their sparring session, but surface videos show sharp competitive work in camp, a clear contrast to how the eventual showdown played out in the actual fight. But that was way over the hill. Ali shouldn't even have been in there. That controversial meeting in Las Vegas saw a 30-year-old Holmes beat up a helpless 38-year-old Ali for 10 rounds before Angelo Dundee pulled this man from the fight. Billed as the last hurrah, the heavyweight title fight drew a huge backlash, and bleak post-fight details of Ali's deteriorating health conditions have since raised eyebrows over how it was allowed to take place in the first place. Incredibly, Ali would fight one more time the following year in an unsuccessful swan song against Trevor Berbick. Yeah, even after the Holmes fight, he actually fought another time. Incredible. In famous sparring stories, Sugar Ray Leonard and Quincy Taylor. Leonard and Taylor. I was really dominating all of my sparring partners, but that punch woke me up. Thank God for Quincy Taylor. Sugar Ray Leonard stated as he recalled his now high-profile sparring drama. Just days before dethroning Marvelous Marvin Hagler with one of the most hugely debated decisions in boxing history in 1987, Leonard was dropped and badly rocked by his southpaw sparring partner, Quincy Taylor. He hit me so hard, I was out cold. I played it off so no one would know how bad I was hurt, but I was out, Sugar Ray remembered. Taylor was brought into Leonard's camp to help prepare him for the ferocious southpaw middleweight champion Marvin Hagler. Leading up to the legendary matchup billed as the super fight, Leonard was a former welterweight champion, returning from retirement and entering as a mammoth underdog, with just one fight in the previous 5 years. Okay? The signs all pointed towards Hagler destroying Leonard, especially considering the sparring news that surfaced about Leonard sparring with Taylor. But the latter Hall of Famer pulled off one of the biggest upsets ever. It's a feat he achieved with a lot of help from Taylor, he admitted. Having changed his initial game plan of going toe-to-toe with Hagler before his rough rounds in the gym with Taylor. The thing about it was, I was going to slug it out with Hagler. I knew my hands were faster, and he had a lot of scar tissue. After sparring with Quincy, I changed my strategy for my fight with Hagler. Thanks, Quincy. I love you, buddy. He would have went in there and got knocked out if he would have changed his game plan. Yeah, and Triple G and Canelo sparred before they actually fought. Famous sparring stories. Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. Triple G. Let's talk about that. Triple G and Canelo. The Drunk Irishman in the building. Salute Drunk Irishman. We're looking at some infamous sparring stories. Drunk Irishman. Now we're looking at Canelo and Triple G. This was before their trilogy, of course. I think it was like 5 years before that. They were both young. You can tell by the picture. It's, Canelo in the white shirt, Triple G in the orange. Okay? Let's talk about that. Many years before producing one of the fiercest rivalries and most compelling trilogies in boxing history, a young Canelo Alvarez and lesser known Gennady Golovkin met for sparring in the gym. Both men would ultimately collide 3 times in their illustrious careers, with the first and second fights becoming 2 of the most memorable middleweight battles in the modern era. But in 2011, a 20-year-old Canelo arrived at a 28-year-old Triple G's Big Bear training camp for rounds before he had even been given the now prominent moniker of Canelo. The Mexican was noted by Ring Magazine insiders to have held his own during the sparring session with Triple G, who was coming into the peak of his powers at that time. So the Kazakh middleweight legend was seen as the dominant champion during these early rounds shared when both men were already world title holders at this stage of their respective careers, albeit in different divisions. We had very good sparring sessions back then. Those were exciting spars to watch, stated Triple G modestly, as he recalled the early experiences with his sparring partner turned long-term nemesis, Conor McGregor, Paulie Malignaggi. Looking at some old sparring. Conor McGregor and Paulie Malignaggi. Yes, all sparring does not stay in the gym. Here we go. Paulie on the left, Conor McGregor on the right. In the lead up to the second highest grossing pay-per-view fight in history between Hall of Fame inductee Floyd Mayweather Jr. and UFC champion Conor McGregor, there was an infamous sparring leak which caused a stir. Mayweather would eventually break down and stop the Irishman as he switched from MMA to the boxing ring in a financially prosperous move. But the notorious one riled up another former world champion during training camp. Before becoming Money Mayweather's 50th career victim, McGregor had recruited 2-weight champion Paulie Malignaggi as a sparring partner, and later his team released self-flattering footage of the sparring. Infuriated by the edited clips, which went viral and showed him hitting the canvas, Malignaggi became involved in a bitter feud with the Dubliner. And there were even reports of a potential boxing match between the two. That fight never materialized, but there remains bad blood between the two men to this day. Yeah, they said it was edited. Jersey Joe Walcott and Joe Louis. Talk about some sparring. There they are. That's the actual fight between the two there, but they had 2 fights. Joe Louis won both of them, but they say Jersey Joe was robbed in the first one. Let's talk about it. Then in the second one, Jersey Joe felt that he got robbed when he outboxed Joe Louis, so he felt he had to knock him out and went toe-to-toe and went and then got knocked out. He should have just fought the same fight. So what if he got robbed again? You wasn't going to beat Joe Louis standing there slugged it out with him. But, he couldn't get the decision, so he went for the knockout. Two all-time greats and former heavyweight world champions, Jersey Joe Walcott and Joe Louis, met in the ring for two legendary battles for the greatest honor in boxing. In 1947, Walcott contested the Brown Bomber for his heavyweight crown at Madison Square Garden, dropping the champion twice on his way to losing a highly controversial 15-round split decision. And after they gave the decision to Joe Louis, he went across the ring and apologized to Jersey Joe Walcott. Now, the following year, Walcott was viciously knocked out in their rematch at Yankee Stadium, further prolonging his relentless but eventually successful charge for the heavyweight championship. He became world champion in his fifth attempt in 1951 when he beat Ezzard Charles. But in the build-up to the two meetings with Louis, there were sparring stories that had circulated and added to the aura of their rivalry. Jersey Joe had boldly claimed to abduct Louis when he was hired as a sparring partner. But this was abruptly denied as the Brown Bomber fired back, saying he hit Walcott so hard it forced him to quit camp and never come back. But he did drop Joe Louis twice in the actual fight. But Joe Louis said he didn't drop him in sparring. Joe Louis said he hit Walcott so hard in the sparring that Jersey quit and never came back to the camp as a sparring partner. But we did see Jersey Joe drop Joe Louis twice in the actual fight. Sam Langford and James J. Jeffries. Sam Langford, James J. Jeffries, talking about some sparring. There's the Boston Bone Crusher, Sam Langford. In a proper throwback to the vintage days of prize fighting, there were even high-profile sparring tales during the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Even back then, they had to get ready for their fights, so I guess they sparred, right? Now, Sam Langford is regarded as one of the top 5 greatest fighters in boxing history, with his record and achievements from lightweight all the way up to heavyweight, reading like a fictional novel. James J. Jeffries is most notably remembered in history as the Great White Hope, who was ushered back into the ring out of retirement for a savage beating at the hands of Jack Johnson in their 1910 Fight of the Century, following a previous 6-year retirement. Although the Boilermaker had previously been a dominant force in his era, with wins over Tom Sharkey, Bob Fitzsimmons, and James J. Corbett during his reign as heavyweight champion. Despite the massive size difference between both men and the fact Langford once publicly said, "The only man I won't fight is James J. Jeffries," there were widely reported rumors of a serious sparring incident involving them. Newspaper clippings claim that Langford had knocked Jeffries out cold in sparring just days before his infamous defeat to Johnson. It's a believable sparring story, considering how great Langford was and the amount of larger opponents he actually overcame in his fights. Yeah, very believable. And there you have it, just some sparring stories from the past. Okay, next let's look at some the greatest switch hitters in boxing history. We was going to do this yesterday, but we're going to get it in today. Some of the greatest switch hitters in boxing history. There's Bud Crawford. Might be the greatest. Bud Crawford. How's everybody this Wednesday afternoon? Just looking at some boxing history like we usually do between 2 and 4 Monday through Friday. Equipment moving kind of slow here. But here we go. Some of the greatest southpaws in boxing history now. Possibly the best one on the screen right there. I mean, not southpaw, switch hitters. Switch hitters. In boxing. Because we got switch hitters in baseball too. And that's what came up because I put best switch hitters. How come it just didn't come up? Why did it pick baseball? But here we go. Best switch hitters in boxing. Now. Okay. Got about 5 or 6 of them we're going to briefly cover. Terrence Crawford. Now, while it is difficult to impossible for any boxer to achieve a perfect game from one stance, Crawford seems virtually flawless from both. His left and right jabs pack equal sting. His timing is immaculate, and he is rarely off balance. Most significantly, he is always defensively responsible, no matter which way he stands, southpaw or orthodox. And when he does get hit, he handles it with aplomb. Okay? When he does get hit, he handles it very well. A look back at some of Crawford's fight-ending punches reveals how multi-dimensional he is from either stance. As a righty, he stopped Yuriorkis Gamboa with a left hook, Hank Lundy with an overhand right, and Jesse Benavidez with a right uppercut. As a southpaw, it was a check right hook against Kell Brook, a left to the body against Julius Ndongo, and a straight left hand against Sean Porter. Hypothetically, if Crawford only utilized one stance, be it southpaw, paw, or orthodox, he might still have the genius level IQ that he has and skill set to be arguably the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. From either stance, if he only utilized one, he still might be the best. But the fact that he can do it both ways sure didn't hurt his game. Bud Crawford. You're looking at some of the best southpaws in boxing history. The Prince was Naseem Hamed. That's Bud. It's the Prince. The Prince Naseem Hamed. I mean, switch hitters, not southpaws. Switch hitters. Switch hitters. Okay? Yeah, if Bud was just strictly southpaw or strictly orthodox, he still would have achieved the same success. Okay? But it didn't hurt being able to do it from both stances. Didn't hurt at all. While Bud did everything right in the ring, the polar opposite is true for Hamed, who committed virtually every error in boxing from both the southpaw and orthodox positions. He fought with his hands held dangerously low and chin invitingly high. He leapt rather than stepped in with punches that were highly telegraphed, threw uppercuts from long distance, and showboated to taunt and torment his opponents and audiences alike. But guess what? It worked for him. Okay? All those things worked for him. His shrewd ability to read his opponent's body language, coupled with crushing power and impressive speed, ensured that despite his recklessness, he leveled his adversaries before they could level him. He seemed to know when and where his opponents would move before they did, and met them there with his fists. Agile and acrobatic, the Prince could close the distance on an opponent from halfway across the ring and unleash his firepower with both fists from both stances and impossible angles. Hamed was controversial to boot. He exuded a level of confidence that often crossed the line into arrogance that rubbed many fans the wrong way. But his actions in and out of the ring drew new fans to the sport. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2015, but is probably the least accomplished fighter among the list of all-time greats due to his seemingly premature retirement shortly after his first loss. Love him or hate him, though, he was fun to watch. The Prince. Looking at some great switch hitters. Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones. Jones did many things wrong fundamentally, whether he was fighting from a left or right-handed stance, most notably left. But in his heyday, he had the fastest hands of the era, regardless of weight division. And that's how he got away with it. He could land whatever power punch he wanted, lead hooks, uppercuts, even bolo punches, with his hands drooping or even behind his back, before his opponent could even think about throwing a jab back at him. He was fluid with combinations and explosive with single shots, regardless of which stance from which he delivered them. His unrivaled speed, talent, and IQ allowed him to capture titles from middleweight to heavyweight, but it was at light heavyweight in which his star shined brightest. Jones sometimes took his foot off the gas and cruised to boring decision wins against far less gifted opponents instead of going for the knockout. He lost his impunity to committing those previously intentional things as his speed and reflexes began to erode with age. He stayed in the game too long and was stopped by fighters he would have blown away in his prime. But all that shouldn't detract from his legacy of being among the best switch hitters of all time. Roy Jones Jr. Looking at some of the greatest switch hitters in boxing history. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Now, primarily a southpaw, Hagler often switched to the orthodox stance from which he fought almost, if not equally, as effectively. A natural righty, his deadliest shot was the right hook from a southpaw stance. But he could ring your bell with any punch, including the jab, from either stance. Hagler had pretty good one-punch knockout power, but more often than not, he would punish and break opponents down with combinations upstairs and down. He was built like a tank, but fought like a buzzsaw, using his superb conditioning to dictate a frenetic pace with which few opponents could keep up with him. While switch hitting was one of his best attributes, it ironically also led to the loss in his final fight. By staying right-handed too long, he allowed Sugar Ray Leonard to sweep the early rounds en route to a split decision win. Hagler's reputation as an elite switch hitter is often overlooked, overshadowed by his other legacy as having one of the best chins in the history of the sport. Yeah, he started that Sugar Ray fight right-handed, something he never done, right? And then that cost him in a close split decision. If he started southpaw, he probably would have won it. Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez. Looking at some great switch hitters. Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez. Chiquita. Mike Rim today. Okay? Now, predominantly a southpaw, Gonzalez was like a miniature version of Hagler, who could also box, bang, and brawl equally effectively as a right-hander. His debilitatingly accurate body punches, in particular, from both hands and stances, frequently drew oohs and ahs from the audience. Despite standing at a diminutive 5'1", Gonzalez's footwork was deft enough to beat taller, rangier opponents to the punch, regardless of the stance from which he was fighting. Gonzalez had concussive power in both fists, but when opponents didn't fold, he had the know-how and stamina to win decisions. His epic trilogy with Michael Carbajal is largely credited for drawing attention and recognition of the smaller weight divisions. But while both Hagler and Gonzalez shared their ability to fight from either stance, Gonzalez lacked Hagler's torpedo-proof chin. Hit Hagler with a sledgehammer, and the sledgehammer might shatter. When Gonzalez took a direct hit, he often wilted. All three of his losses were by stoppage against fighters with less punching power but more punch resistance than him. Less power but more punch resistance. Israil Madrimov, some good switch hitters. Israil Madrimov. At just 10-0 and one draw with 7 knockouts, Madrimov took a gigantic leap up in quality of opposition when he defended his 154-pound title against pound-for-pound king Terence Crawford. With a switch-hitting style that's a hybrid between Hamed and Crawford, he generated buzz among hardcore fight aficionados and became a national hero in Uzbekistan, but was still largely unknown or ignored by the general public. He's not as flashy, flamboyant, or reckless as Hamed, but instead deploys that swashbuckling style in a more cerebral way. Madrimov may have been a few notches below Crawford in terms of ring IQ, but nevertheless, he was pretty well schooled in the sweet science. Madrimov has shown against the B-caliber opponents he has faced in his career, but has never been tested against a metal detector even close to being a top 10 contender before Crawford. In a nutshell, there's still more questions than answers as to his character and capabilities, and some of those questions were answered. August 3rd against Crawford. Had a pretty good fight. Some of those questions were answered. Looking at some of the great switch hitters, now and then, past and present. There's one from the present, Jaron Boots Ennis. Jaron Boots Ennis. At this juncture, Ennis appears to be the one most likely to complete the transition from potential to all-time great. We talked about three current fighters were Madrimov, Ennis, and O'Shaki is next. And at this juncture, Ennis appears to be the one most likely to complete the transition from potential to all-time great of the three. Of the three, he's the most complete package with no major detectable flaws as of yet. Although he was the last to win a title between the three, he has dominated every opponent he has faced thus far with the composure and experience of a seasoned champion. Whether he's fighting as a lefty or righty, Boots packs potent power in both fists. His fundamentals are sound, his technique is polished, and his precision seamless. He is poised under the fire He's poised under fire and appears to have good punch resistance. Most importantly, he is grounded, supremely confident in his abilities, and not afraid to showcase them. And finally is O'Shaquie Foster. There's O'Shaquie. Also, the most accomplished of the three active fighters we looked at, Boots, Madrimov, and O'Shaquie, with 4 world title fights under his belt so far. O'Shaquie is also the most erratic. He convincingly outpointed 2-division title holder Ray Vargas, rallied from behind to stop slugger Eduardo Hernandez in the final round in a candidate for Fighter of the Year. He struggled to a split decision win against the very ordinary Abraham Nova, lost to Conceição, then came back to beat him in a very big effort, very big fight. Beat Cool Boy convincingly, right? Beat him convincingly. But Foster's inconsistency stems not from whether to fight as a lefty or righty. He has been doing both since his early teens. Instead, he seems to have trouble reading his opponents and picking his spots and engaging them. He can do it all from either stance: box, brawl, shoulder roll, circle and counter, be aggressive or defensive. He just doesn't always do the right thing at the right time against the right opponent. O'Shaquie. Okay. Honorable mentions. Mike Tyson. Okay, now Mike Tyson, let's talk about him. In the heat and frenzy of battle, fighters often get spun around to their opposite stance. Most resort to clinching or stepping out to reset their footing before resuming hostilities. But Tyson, when forced out of alignment, could keep punching fluidly with power and poise from however his feet were positioned. Left foot forward, right foot forward, or completely squared up. Thanks to his impeccable balance and fundamentals. Tyson's punch volley that knocked out Larry Holmes in 1988, for example, began from a right-handed stance, but was punctuated with a decapitating right uppercut, fired from a southpaw stance. You might call him an impromptu or accidental switch hitter. Your Tyson is not a traditional switch hitter, but, sometimes he get turned around in the other stance. He don't have to step back and reset or whatever. He can just keep punching effectively. Left foot forward, right foot forward, whatever. Okay. So he's an impromptu or accidental switch hitter, Mike Tyson. Everybody's like, what? Mike Tyson is no switch hitter. Impromptu or accidental switch hitter. Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury. Although he's not the most proficient at fighting from a southpaw stance, Fury occasionally switches to lefty. Sometimes he does it to break his opponent's rhythm, sometimes simply to take a breather, and at other times he does it for no reason other than to amuse himself and experiment with something different out of sheer boredom. His massive size and reach gives him more immunity from the risk of fighting from the less familiar stance. Okay? So now we had, remember we did the show on the Olympians, gold medalists that went on to be great pros. I got some that went on to be less than great pros, but let's look at a little link time too. It's 3:30. On the dot almost. All are welcome to hit the link. You can get 30 good minutes of chopping it up in today. Again, all are welcome. Okay. Let's see. Hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Okay, here we go. Bam. Lincoln's in there. Meanwhile, I'm going to be looking at these Olympic gold medalists who didn't do so well as pros. And then we got, let's go to Laszlo Papp. No. 5 of the best Olympians. Top 5 amateurs. Let's take a look at that. Top 5 amateurs. Yeah, this, matter of fact, that is Laszlo Papp, but he was included in the top 5 amateurs section too. We're gonna look at those amateurs that are great gold medalists in the amateurs, but didn't do so well as pros at another date. We're gonna look at the top 5, 5 of the top amateurs of all time. Because you can always leave somebody out, so I'm not gonna do that. 5 of the top. Don't have to necessarily be the top 5. And then time permitting, we're gonna look at Laszlo Papp. It didn't work out too good right there. Why, I don't know. There we go. Okay. Gee, me Christmas tree. All right, yes. Okay, there we go. 5 of the top amateurs of all times. And we all over the place on today's show. Now what? Hang in there with me for a second. There's something wrong. Oh, I know what I did. Here we go, right here. Try again. Yep, we might have to go to Laszlo Papp. Let's see. See it. Okay, I got it. See, there it is right there. Top 5 of the top amateurs of all time. Teofilo Stevenson, Felix Savon, Vasil Lomachenko, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Laszlo Papp. That's Laszlo Papp there. Laszlo Papp had an amateur record of 301 wins, 12 losses, and 6 draws. Hungary's greatest ever and the first triple champion Olympic boxer. Laszlo Papp won gold medals at the 1948, 1952, and 1956 Olympic Games. His first medal was at middleweight, with the other 2 at junior middleweight, who went down the next 2 years. In 13 Olympic fights, Laszlo lost fight 1 in 13 Olympic fights, Laszlo Papp lost just one round to future pro light heavyweight champion Jose Torres. Papp would eventually turn pro, but on the cusp of a world title shot, the Hungarian government intervened to end his career. His final pro record was 27-0, 2 draws, 15 knockouts. They made him wait forever to turn pro. That's why he had so many Olympics. Then he was getting ready to get a world title fight. They forced him to end his career. Crazy. 5 top amateurs of all time. Teofilo Stevenson. 302 wins, 22 losses, 8 draws. A 3-time Olympic heavyweight champion, 1972, 1976, and 1980. The second of the 3 boxing gold medalists after Papp. Stevenson might have won 4 or even 5 gold medals had Cuba not boycotted the 1984 and 1988 games. She might have. Hugely popular within Cuba due to its boxing success and patriotic support of the Castro regime. In the mid-70s, much was made of a potential fight against Muhammad Ali, but Stevenson could not be tempted, famously saying he could not be tempted to leave his country. Famously saying, what's $8 million compared to the love of 8 million Cubans? Teofilo would also win 3 world championships between 1974 and 1986. And next is Felix Savon. He's the 3rd man to win gold medals in 3 Olympics. Felix Savon, also of Cuba. Now, he was 362 wins, 21 losses. Okay. And another Cuban, and the most recent of the only 3 fighters to win Olympic gold at 3 separate games. Savon took the heavyweight gold in 1992, 1996, and 2000, and was the favorite in 1988 when Cuba boycotted the games. So Teofilo wouldn't have went to that one, or Savon wouldn't have, because they weren't going to go up against each other. Or they might have, but they would have been probably would have been the heavyweight finalists. But one country couldn't have been but one representative right at the original, so I don't know. But yeah, neither one went to 88 because it was boycotted anyway, so. Yeah, but he could have had 4. Felix also won 6 consecutive world championships between 1986 and 1997. A feat perhaps even more impressive than his Olympic success. Just like Teofilo Stevenson and Ali in the 1970s, Savon was linked to a multi-million-dollar showdown with Mike Tyson in the 90s, but he wouldn't defect. Just like Teofilo, he would not defect. Okay? Looking at some great amateurs. Vasyl Lomachenko. 396 wins against just 1 loss. No, that is not a typo. 396 wins against 1 loss. Lomachenko lost just once in 397 amateur fights and twice avenged that 1 defeat. The Ukrainian first won Olympic gold as a featherweight in 2008 before repeating the feat at lightweight in 2012. He also won world championships in the amateurs in 2009 and 2011. Lomachenko was fast-tracked when he turned pro in 2013 and ended up being a 3-weight world champion during his career. Featherweight, super featherweight, and lightweight. What was it, 18-3? I forgot how many knockouts he had during his career, but that's what he ended up as. Amazingly, 15 of his first 16 pro fights were for world titles. 15 of his first 16 pro fights were for world titles. Vasyl Lomachenko. Guillermo Rigondeaux, It's Guillermo. He had an amateur record from Cuba. Amateur record of 463 wins and 12 losses. 475 amateur fights. The third Cuban on the list, Rigondeaux won bantamweight Olympic gold in 2000 and 2004, and also picked up 2 world championship titles. Unlike Stevenson and Savon, Rigondeaux defected in 2009 to turn pro. Yep, he went on to turn pro. Trainer Freddie Roach once described Rigondeaux as probably the greatest talent I've ever seen. Yep. Honorable mentions. Mark Breland, 110 wins, 1 loss as an amateur. Possibly the greatest American amateur of all time. Breland won Olympic gold in 1984 and a world championship in 1982. He returned pro after the 84 Olympics and became a 2-time WBA welterweight champion. Mark Breland. There's Mark. Became a 2-time WBA welterweight champion in the pros. Despite those achievements, his pro career failed to live up to the lofty expectations, perhaps unfairly, created by his stellar amateur career. Okay, yeah. Let's look at Laszlo Papp. Digging deep on Laszlo's career. Hungarian fighter. Talk about him, how they made him wait forever to turn pro, and then when he finally got a title shot after 27 fights, 27-0, the Hungarian government pulled him out of the pro ranks. Wouldn't let him fight for the title. Crazy. So I want to get this in because this is pretty interesting. Laszlo Papp. Crazy. How those communist countries do. This Laszlo on the right. Let's talk about Laszlo Papp in the show. Okay. There we go. Just Do Boxing coming up next. BBO at 8 o'clock. Arnie Boxing around 9. Tonight, big night of boxing talk coming up. Laszlo Papp was born in a town named Anyaföld, Hungary, near the capital city of Budapest. As a youngster, he had to grow in the middle of the Second World War. When the war was over, Papp started to get interested in sports. At first, he played soccer, like so many other Hungarian youngsters. But after seeing a boxing movie called The Final Round, all that changed, and the young Laszlo picked up a sport that would make him a legend. Few could have guessed at the time what this young boy who had been enchanted. Few would have guessed at the time what this young boy who had been enchanted by the movie would yet achieve in the sport. Papp was only 19 years old when he first represented Hungary in an international tournament. He got his chance somewhat luckily when the reigning national middleweight champion, Gyula Bicsak, didn't have an opponent for the elimination contest. Papp got up from his ringside seat, and stepped in the ring. And the champion accepted him as his opponent. So he was there watching. And the champion didn't have an opponent, so Papp came out of the audience, I'll fight you. And the champion said, okay. But the champion, of course, didn't know what kind of man he was about to meet. Pap knocked him out cold in the second round. And in the international fight, he won the Czechoslovakian. He won his Czechoslovakian opponent and knocked out his Czechoslovakian opponent in the very first round. Okay, ended up winning the tournament after coming in as a spectator. In 1947, Pap had already represented his land in the European Championship tournament. His time had not yet come, however. A Czech fighter called Torma defeated him and dropped him out from medals. Pap was still relatively unknown internationally when he attended the Olympic Games in London the next year. But after 1 week, everybody knew who he was. Apart from his semifinal foe, an Italian named Ivano Fontana, and his final opponent, John Wright from Great Britain, Pap knocked out all his opponents and won his first gold medal in a convincing manner at the age of 22. Pap was a bit too good for his own good, as he found out after his success in the Olympics. His huge punching power drove his opponents away, and it was hard for him to get fights. The next time he faced the best of his division was in the next European Championships in 1949. Now Pap was the favorite, and he didn't let his supporters down. None of his opponents could really challenge him as he marched on to take the gold medal again. The same path continued after another 2 years, when the next European Championship Games were organized. Pap was now the big favorite to win the gold in a new weight class, won the 56 pounds. And again, he was overwhelming as he won the title for the second time in a row. 156 is junior middleweight in the amateurs, by the way. After winning 3 big tournaments and being only 25 years old, many of his countrymen advised him to retire. But Pap didn't want to have any of that. He trained hard for the Olympic Games that were held in Helsinki, Finland in 1952. In his weight class, there were 23 participants, and in the first round, Pap faced the other big favorite of the division, the American, Ellsworth Spider Webb. Ellsworth Spider Webb. Webb gave Pap a harder fight than anybody else before, but after a great battle, Pap knocked his foe out in the second round. In the next rounds, Pap had little difficulties. He knocked out one opponent and outpointed 3. 5 fights and 5 victories meant another gold medal for the Hungarian, who now was a national icon in Hungary. Now, Pap's critics still wanted him to quit his career, and when he wasn't willing to do that, they directed the attack at his trainer. Now, his trainer, Adler, had to quit his job, and in the next year, Pap had to train for the upcoming European Championships by himself. In the ring, he wasn't near to his best, and a Russian Olympic bronze medalist, Boris Tilson, defeated him on points. After the letdown, Pap demanded that he should get his old trainer back. However, this was not accepted, and thusly, Pap didn't participate in the next European Championships in 1955 at all. Despite the disappointments, the dream about the 3rd Olympic gold medal was still alive in Pap's mind. He even got his old trainer, Siggy Adler, back in his corner for this Olympics. But before the Olympics, Pap faced trouble that he hadn't had before. In an international tournament that was held in Warsaw, Poland, a Polish fighter named Zbigniew Petrzycki knocked Pap down in the second round of their fight. It was the first and only time Pap had ever been on the canvas in his career. He got up in time, but the fight was stopped in favor of the skilled Polish fighter. Pap wasn't willing to participate in the tournament in the first place, and the result certainly didn't help him in the training for the Olympics that were held in Melbourne, Australia in 1956. The competition was harder than ever for Pap, but once again, he showed his tremendous fighting spirit. He defeated Petr Zakowski this time handily on points on his way to the finals. In the finals, he met Jose Torres from the United States, who would later become a professional world champion, Customado fighter, Jose Torres. That's Manta Killer that Pereira was talking about yesterday too. Now the fight was very evenly matched, but in the end, Pap won by a 2-1 split decision and conquered yet another gold medal. That's 3 of them. First one to win 3. After 3 Olympic gold medals, there was little left for Laszlo Pap to achieve in the amateur ranks. He had gathered an unbelievable record of 300 wins against only 5 losses and 6 draws. Pap was interested to fight as a pro, and even though it was against the principles of the communist government of Hungary, the officials gave him their blessing as a contribution for all the success Pap had brought to his homeland. Pap couldn't live in Hungary anymore since the country didn't like pro athletes, and thusly he moved to Germany to train. His pro career started slowly with wins over unknown German opponents. The pro style suited the hard-punching Pap well, but at the age of over 30, he had some learning to do. Things started to go faster when Pap changed his manager and moved to Wien, Austria, where it was closer to his home and family. From Austria, it was also easier for him to get to fight in Paris, where most of his important boxing matches were made. Pap became a popular figure in the pro ranks too. He marched on toward the European Championship fight, but years later, years that he had lost early to his pro career were now paying dearly. He was also getting older and running out of time. He finally got his chance to fight for the title in 1965, and he also took it by knocking out the Danish champion, Chris Christensen, in 8 rounds. This is the European Championship. Pap won the rematch and defended his title successfully for a total of 5 times. A victory over Sugar Ray Robinson's former challenger, Ralph Tiger Jones, proved that Pap was to be taken seriously on the world level as well as the European level. A world championship fight against Dick Tiger and also his successor, Joey Giardello, was planned, often for Pap, but it never materialized. Pap had already signed a contract to face Tiger in the United States, and he was willing to travel there, but the Hungarian officials prevented it. They announced that it was time for the 38-year-old Pap to end his career and to come back to his homeland to help the up-and-coming prospects. And he wasn't even living in Hungary, but they forced him to come back. He should have just defected. But the loyal man that he was, Pap did just that and gave up his pro career undefeated in 29 fights. His European championship went to Italian Nino Benvenuti, who would later become a great middleweight world champion. Around 1964 was one of the best middleweights in the world. Nino Benvenuti. Some magazines ranked him to be the first contender for Giardello. But as for Pap, after his active career, he worked long as a coach for the Hungarian national team. Pap was known as a quiet, honest man who never bragged about himself, but did his talking inside the ring. And in there, his fist told a story that will never be forgotten from the minds of boxing fans. Laszlo Pap of Hungary, one of 3-time Olympic gold medalists and the first ever. There you have it. That's the joke, Albert. Thomas still, yeah. Those are the people that were in it. But yeah, salute to everybody. Hope everybody enjoyed today's show. Just various different subjects today. Hit the like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And we'll be back tomorrow with another 2 p.m. for the Thursday afternoon show. Everybody have a good afternoon. Appreciate it.